Hey everybody, welcome and welcome back to my channel. This is Liz Loves Books. I read 7 books in the month of November and DNF'd 3. Let's talk about them. November was an interesting reading month because I had books that I really enjoyed and then a lot that I didn't. But the first book that I read this month was She is a Haunting by Trang Tan Tran. This is a YA horror book. I read it for my 2025-26 horror bingo TBR. And I had been wanting to read this book for quite a while, ever since it was released back, I think, in 2023. So I finally read it, and I was rather disappointed by it, which is really sad. But you can't win them all. I thought I might not have liked it because when I read it, I was nervous about reading it when I saw the 3.36 average rating on Goodreads, and I unfortunately was kind of right in my assumptions. I usually try not to let that sway my opinions, but this book was just so hard to get through. It was very slow and kind of monotonous and kind of confusing at times, knowing who was speaking when and what timeline was occurring. And this book is only 352 pages, so it's not like it's overly long either. So it was a really weird time when reading it. I am gonna just read my Goodreads reviews. I've been really good about actually keeping up with my reviews on Goodreads, so I will make sure that that is always linked down below. But my review, I had to round it up to a 3-star on Goodreads, but it was more so a 2.5-star read. I said, this was the first book I read for my year-long horror bingo TBR challenge that I'm participating in, and it was sadly disappointing for me. This is a YA haunted house horror, which I typically enjoy. It took me 7 days to read a 325-ish page book, which never takes me that long. It says, I was intrigued in the beginning and enjoyed the writing style as well as the interludes that were in between some chapters, but it got tiring really fast. The writing was a little too flowery for me, but also had a lot of important messages and topics interspersed throughout the book, such as sexual orientation, coming-of-age concerns, familial disputes, divorced families, mental health, and the challenges of being a Vietnamese American girl. Overall, I wasn't too creeped out or scared during the horror elements because I had trouble delineating whether they were happening in real time, in dreams, or in flashbacks, and they had all 3 of these in the book. So it was so confusing. The horror happened within all 3 of these timelines, which also made it hard to follow. And there were also multiple characters from past timelines that blended together, so I couldn't remember who was who. I'm sad to say that I didn't enjoy this book like I thought I would because it's been an anticipated read since it came out in 2023. So, yep, that was my first book of November. Luckily, I got it from the library, though, so I didn't, purchase it and then have to immediately unhaul it, which is great. But yeah, it wasn't a great start to November. Then the next book I read was Falling Like Leaves by Misty Wilson. It's a very cute, very fall-centric book. And I do still have this book for this wrap-up purposes, but I am going to unhaul it. But I'm thinking about putting it into a little free library that's near like high school, probably, because this takes place with seniors in high school, and I think it'd be really good for someone of that age to read it. So that is my plans for this one. This is book 1, supposedly in the Bramble Falls series, so I would be interested to read the other ones. I would just probably get them from my library. And it currently has a 3.82 average rating on Goodreads. I had to round up to a 4-star on Goodreads, but I gave this book a 3.5 stars. Says, I purchased this book amongst the hype of all the beautiful fall books that came out recently, so I knew I needed to read it ASAP. This was a really good YA book, and while I didn't relate to any of the difficult situations as a 30-year-old, I still think it's a really good book. I would highly recommend readers of the upper YA group read this for sure. It deals with a lot of important topics that teens need to hear or see themselves in, such as moving away from home, parental separation, potential parental divorce, impressing a parent, fitting in at a new school, creating new friends, repairing old friendships, and experiencing your first love. The writing was really easy and fast to get through and had very cutesy fall vibes with the Bramble Falls Festival events that were sprinkled throughout the book. Our MMC Cooper was the cutest little golden retriever boy, and our FMC Ellis gave off such black cat girl energy. They were both so different personality-wise, but learned how to work with each other, became friends, and then later on a little something more. My only downside with the book was Alice really annoyed me at times with the constant need to impress her father, and going so far as to be insulting to other people in her quest to find that love from her father. I get it happening once or even twice, but it happened frequently in the book and got a bit tiring. Overall, this was a cute and fun fall read that I needed. I will definitely be putting this book in one of my local high school little free libraries. So that was the second book that I read in November. So a much higher rating than the previous book, but still not anything that I was blown away by. And then I listened to an ALC from Libro FM of Black-Owned: The Revolutionary Life of the Black Bookstore by Char Adams. This is a 4.48 average rating on Goodreads. I don't have a giant review for this because I usually just give books like this 5 stars because, you know, it's not a fiction book. It's nonfiction, and I feel like rating nonfiction is kind of tricky to do, you know, because you're obviously reading it to get more information about whatever the book is about. So I feel like it's like, if you want to learn more information, what right do you have to rate it, in a sense? So I usually give them 5 stars. But my little review said, so sad to not see this in the Goodreads Choice Awards, but not surprised within the nonfiction category, because last year there was a similar type of book that won the nonfiction category, and I believe it was called The Bookshop. And it was like a history of American bookstores. And it was written by a white male author. The people within the story and more just like the types of bookstores that came up. And the fact that that one was in the Goodreads Choice Awards and then won last year, and this one wasn't even nominated, says a lot. This book was a really informative and knowledgeable read, and Char Adams did an amazing job researching and narrating the audiobook. Each chapter discussed a different, you know, timeline and different bookstores in different areas in the U.S. And the people behind the bookstores, and it was more so about the people who made the bookstore what it was and what they are, and how they each timeline improved the bookstore experience, and both for owners and people that consumed and came into the store for the next generation. And I feel like just the way that Char Adams wrote the book and researched it was just very well thought out. And I would highly recommend this if you're interested in trying to get more into nonfiction. The next book that I read this month and was my only 5-star was Enchantra by Kaylee Smith, book 2 in the Wicked Games series. I read Phantasma earlier this year, and then one of my friends kept telling me, read Enchantra, you'll love it even more than Phantasma, and they were correct. And I read through this book so quickly. I read it in like a day and a half. And it's about like 428 pages. So, no good feat. I mean, my review says, I read this book in a day and a half. Explosion emoji. I've been in a minor slump for a week and a half, so this was perfect to get me out of it. I enjoyed Kaylee's first book, Phantasma. I was anticipating Enchantra and finally read it. The connections back to the first book, the continuation of Genevieve's story, and the addition of the Silver family story, amazing. The Silver family was so funny, and I would totally read a book about each of their love stories, TBH. Ellen, she has my heart. Seven was hilarious. Coven was unnerving. Grave was scary. Wells, I want to know more about. Remy was intriguing, and Rowan was everything I want in a love interest. He and Genevieve's connection was built so well, and nothing felt out of place or cringy. Finally, the games in this installment, such a unique concept. I loved how there were dire straits one moment, and then they were just having a family dinner the next. If you're confused by that, it'll make total sense if you read the book. I don't want to give away why, because spoilers! A perfect mixture of humor, tension, spice, world building, and romance. Please pick this series up. I can't wait for book 3 whenever it arrives. Read this book! Thank you! Then next I did a reread of Red Queen by Victoria Aveyard, book 1 in the Red Queen series. I wanted to reread this because I read it last year, gave it 4 stars, and then I wanted to continue on the series, but I wanted to do a reread. 4 stars again on my reread. This is a YA fantasy book with a romance subplot, and I'm really excited to get into the next book in the series. Hopefully I can pick that up sometime in the new year. The blurb on the back says, this is a world divided by blood, red or silver. The Reds are commoners ruled by a silver elite in possession of godlike superpowers. And to 17-year-old Mare, a red girl from the poverty-stricken stilts, it seems like nothing will ever change. But But Mare possesses a deadly talent of her own, one that threatens to destroy the balance of power. Fearful of her potential, the Silvers hide Mare in plain view, declaring her a long-lost Silver Princess. Knowing that one false move will mean her death, Mare must use her new position to bring down the regime from the inside. Now Mare has entered a game of betrayal and lies. This one has a really good twist near the end. Another book that I highly recommend. Then the next book that I read was on Kindle Unlimited, and that was When the Tides Held the Moon by Vanessa Vida Kelly. This is a debut book and author, and also made it into the top 10 category for debut author for the Goodreads Choice Awards. I voted for it in the top 20 first round, and then I voted for it again right when I finished it for the finals, and I am really hoping that it wins because Vanessa is really doing something very unique with this storyline. I gave When the Tides Held the Moon 4 stars. I did really enjoy it. There was just a couple little things that I wanted to have tweaked and changed a bit, but my review said, so glad I picked this book up and got to vote for it in the finals of the Goodreads Choice Awards. This debut novel is everything. It's a historical queer romance with fantastical elements set in 1911 Coney Island, New York. There are carnies, mermen, mobsters, and illustrations in the book, and the illustrations are drawn by the author. And I think we need to have more fantasy books do this. I mean, yes, a lot of them have a map in the beginning, which is really amazing, but having actual illustrations interspersed in an adult, like fantasy romance book was so unique and so different, and it really helped you kind of visualize the characters more. So we follow Benny Caldera, an immigrant and blacksmith from Puerto Rico, trying to find his way in a world that treats him like dirt. When he is discovered because of his skills by the head proprietor of Luna Park, a struggling sideshow, he is hired to build an indestructible tank for a merman. Throughout the book, Benny gains many friendships with the members of the sideshow act, including the merman, who eventually becomes a found family full of what people of that time would consider misfits. Think of, like, The Greatest Showman. That is a very similar kind of vibe to this book. The romance in this is very purposeful and endearing to discover as a reader. It's more unique than most romance books that I've read in the best way. Benny and the merman's relationship. And then I put in parentheses, yes, the merman does have a name. But I'm not sharing it due to potential spoilers. His name is part of a really important part in the book, so hence why he's just being called Merman. It develops into such a genuine and caring relationship, and they both learn so much from each other throughout the course of this novel. Please pick this book up. It's so important and also beautifully written, and I can't wait to read more of Vanessa's work in the future. Then the last book that I finished in November, If It Makes You Happy by Julie Olivia. But it was so fun to be able to read this over the Thanksgiving holiday. It just kind of made me become really much more immersed in the book itself. And even though this book is, I think it's almost 500 pages. Yeah, 497 pages with like the epilogue and that bonus chapter. I did not read like almost 500 pages. I read this book so quickly in like 3 days. And I'm so sad that it's not in the top 10 for best romance for Goodreads Choice Awards, because I would have definitely probably voted for this one. So my review, I rounded up to a 5-star on Goodreads, but I gave it a 4.5 star. Said, I'm so glad I put this book down in September and waited until November to read it. Even though the book was almost 500 pages, it flew by. The writing was so easy to read, but also so excellent. Julie really knows how to write dialogue between characters and have the convos flow so easily, even in tense situations where the dialogue isn't as constant. Each character felt so distinctive and so uniquely themselves that I was never confused as to which townspeople was who. That can be so hard to do, and Julie did it beautifully. I loved the 90s vibes, but also the holiday vibes going from September through December, Halloween, Thanksgiving, Christmas, and New Year's. Also glad I read this later in November because of the Thanksgiving holiday. I adored Michelle and Cliff as a couple, Cliff's relationship with his daughters Emily and Brittany, and the townspeople. It's very Gilmore Girls coded, which was really fun for me. And the only thing that frustrated me was when Michelle felt like she had to want to go back to Seattle after her 2 to 3 month stay here in Copper Run, Vermont, where the inn is that she is taking over temporarily for her sister. I get why they had that occur at the end, because it helped for the big and dramatic 90s rom-com like vibes that you get with all those movies. so it had a much bigger ending. I felt that that little part was dragged down a bit too long, and that's why it ended up being a 4.5 star. So please read this book. It's stunning. It's beautiful. Then I'm just going to quickly go through the books that I DNF'd. So I tried to read The Dance Tree by Karen Millwood Hargrave. This is a historical book taking place in Strasbourg in 1518. And then this one I was so surprised by and kind of sad by, but I DNF'd The Spell Shop by Sarah Beth Durst. I heard so many good things about this. The cover is beautiful. The concept sounds really, really cool. And I don't know if it's just because I've read a little bit too many cozy romances lately. The writing just felt so stilted and just wasn't very engaging. She glanced across the boat to see he wedged himself between two of the crates and who wound his leaves tight around his root ball. This is her sentient spider plant that she talks to. Says, "Kaz, what are you doing?" "Fish eat plants," he said. "Some fish, yes." She wasn't overly familiar with the dietary preferences of fish. She knew there were fish who liked kelp. She supposed they ate plankton too. Also insects? "Some fish eat other fish." "Who eat plants?" "I suppose so. Everything eats plants," Kaz said. "But barely anything eats books. That's why I'm positioning myself between the crates." The writing did not work for me whatsoever, which is sad because I have to unhaul this. And then I also have to unhaul The Enchanted Greenhouse by Sarah Beth Durst. So technically there's 4 books I'm DNFing, but only 3 I've tried. And then this final one, I was really sad about this because I wanted it to be kind of a transitional book into the winter. And this is Ice Contact by Ellie K. Drake. I picked this up at the Well-Read Damsel in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. They put up a lot of local Wisconsin authors. This is a local Wisconsin author, obviously. But it's a contemporary hockey romance. But it's fun because it takes place in Milwaukee. And so, like, we have the Milwaukee Admirals, the hockey team, and these people are called the Milwaukee Steel Riders. So, like, right on here really tiny, you can see a little motorcycle. That's why they're called the Steel Riders. I was worried this book would be fast-paced because it is very short. It's only 287 pages. And boy, was this not good. The writing was fine. It was very kind of stereotypical, but it was so insta-lust and so insta-love. I couldn't. I got to 100 pages in, and I got through the first spicy scene, and that wasn't anything special either. It did do dual POV between our FMC Olivia and our MMC Hayes. But he was calling her mine before they barely after one meeting while she was still dating the boyfriend she had, even though he was trash, but got very possessive very quickly, and it wasn't good. So that was really disappointing. So tried 3 books, DNF them, had to DNF 4 in total, but I did have a couple other really good books and then other disappointing ones. Overall, it was kind of a mix of genres and ratings in November, and I'm hoping that December will have a little bit more steadiness to it because I just want that for December. So that is my November wrap up. I will let you guys go. Thank you so much for watching this video. Comment below what your best book and your worst book of November was, and I look forward to seeing you guys in another video soon. Bye guys.